So take a moment and recall the kindness of others and how your entire life, whatever you have, whatever you know, all comes through the effort and the kindness of other beings. And so really feel that relationship with all beings. And when you feel like you're surrounded by kindness, then automatically we want to join in with that. And we want to give kindness in return. So let that feeling arise. So this feeling is very much the opposite of the feeling that wants to wall ourselves off and protect ourselves from others. It's one that wants to give back in return for what we have received. And then let that kindness keep on increasing and becoming more powerful so that it becomes the aspiration to attain full awakening, so that you can really repay the kindness of all beings, so that you really have the sensitivity and compassion and wisdom to repay the kindness, or to give kindness in the most effective way. So there's a couple of questions here. Most translations for patience are fortitude, and the text uses vigor. Which text? This text? I don't know. Anyway, so why is fortitude preferred? People translate this term in many different ways. Some patience. Vigor is usually for the fourth paramita, the one that we translate as joyous effort, that some people call it vigor, some people call it plain effort, some people call it diligence. Yeah, so there's many different terms for these things. For patience, sometimes it's translated as forbearance. Yeah, I prefer fortitude because fortitude gives, like I said yesterday, patience is like, I'm waiting for somebody. Be patient. Yeah. And that's not at all what this is expressing. I like fortitude because it evokes a feeling of inner strength. Yeah, you have the inner strength to endure different things. So when you think of the different kinds of fortitude, then it helps. You may see why that translation works. So there's three kinds of fortitude. The first is to endure criticism, harm, things like that from other living beings. Okay, so to have some inner strength when people criticize you, they trash you, they treat you poorly, to have inner strength so that you don't get angry. Yeah, because fortitude is one of the antidotes to anger. The other next kind of fortitude is the fortitude to endure suffering. So when we're sick or we're injured, when we're in pain, again, the tendency can be to get angry, because we're already frazzled, we're stressed by something, and so we often take that out as anger. So fortitude, having the inner strength to bear whatever suffering experiences we have without either taking it out on others or without ourselves just crumbling into a pool of self-pity. Okay? And then the third kind of fortitude is the fortitude to study the Dharma, because when you really get into, the study and practice, uh, especially when you're working on the ultimate nature of reality, trying to understand the emptiness of inherent existence, it's not easy. Yeah, it's not easy. And so we need the fortitude, the stick to itness, the ability to not, again, crumble because we don't have the inner strength to continue the study and practice. Okay, so that's why I like fortitude. Patience doesn't do anything for me. Like I said, vigor is usually an alternative translation for the fourth paramita. Uh, Fortitude is the third. Okay? Then there's another question here. This is a very interesting question that I'm sure several of us have had the experience of. Is it non-virtuous to regret giving to an organization after learning that some in their leadership embezzled some of the tithing money? Okay, so there's an organization, you believe in its function. It sounds like it's a charity organization. Tithing, maybe it's a religious, organization. Although people can they tithe to other kinds of charities? Maybe you yourself determine you're going to give a certain amount. Okay, so this same organization does use the tithing money to help people. But I've learned that much of their wealth obtained from the generosity of lay members is not being used for virtuous purposes. I feel some regret for all the years I paid tithing to this organization. Am I creating negative karma by having this regret? If so, how can I work with my mind on this? Also, I now have suspicion of self-proclaimed charitable organizations. What are some suggestions to work with that mind of suspicion? Okay, people, we know what they're talking about, huh? Okay, so let's deal first with the regret issue. They say that when you've done a virtuous action, you destroy that virtue when you regret having done it. So the best way in this kind of circumstance to avoid regretting it is to think that the donation you mind, the donation you gave was going directly into the help that that organization did give others. Because you said that they did use some of the funds to help others. So direct your money in your mind to my donation went to directly help other people. Okay, so my donation did not go for the misuse of the money or to people who shouldn't have it. And that way you can still feel good about your donation. You're not destroying the virtue. but you're really reaffirming why you gave the donation, which was, a very compassionate wish to be of benefit to others. So you are directing your your donation that way. Okay, and I see that doing the same when you pay taxes. Yeah. Um, I used to write on the top of the check, use this for social services, you know? So think of it as, you're making a donation and the government uses some money for the military. You don't want it to go for that. But if you do, then okay. But many of us don't. And, then say use it for social services, use it for health care, because use it to give food to, to families and so on. And in that way, direct your money specifically in your mind to the projects that you want it to be used for. Okay, so that helps the whole thing. Yeah. Now, in terms of the suspicion for charitable organizations. Yeah, you have one experience like this, and then we tend to generalize towards all charitable organizations. Or even you haven't had the experience like this. You read about one organization where the money has been misused, and even you haven't donated to that organization, but you think, oh, I better be careful of all of them. Yeah. So um, you don't want to go around with a suspicious mind, like, but you do, you know, if you're giving a huge donation, it's good to really, call the organization or meet with somebody, and ask specifically where your donation will be used. And don't ask them to name something after you. Okay, because that is polluting your donation. Yeah. But it's fine to check with organizations. Many organizations have to post things online about their finances. I know at the Abbey we put out an annual report that we send to people who have made donations, and we also post it online. Yeah, it doesn't show every single thing. I don't know how many people want to pour through books. I guess if you're an accountant in your spare time, you like to, to do that. But, our books are open. So anybody at any time who wants to see what we use the money for is welcome to ask, and we're happy to show them. So, you can ask organizations for that. Yeah. And you can check them out well and see, you know, look at their annual reports, look at what they have online, ask people in the organization, and that's fine to do. It kind of relates to the question somebody asked yesterday about, um, what was that question? It was a similar kind of question about, oh, can I ask an organization before I make a donation what it's going to be used for? Yes, by all means. Yeah, because you want uh, your donation to be used in a certain way, and it's the obligation of the organization to use it as the donor has donated it. Yeah, and I know, at least for us, part of our precepts as fully ordained uh, bhikshus and bhikshunis is that there's several precepts concerning this, actually, about if a donor gives a donation for a specific purpose, we have to use it for that purpose. If we don't use it, if we can't use it for that purpose, or we don't need it for that purpose anymore, then we go back to the donor and explain and say, can we use it for this other purpose? And then if they say yes, then we can direct it towards something else. If they say no, then we return it. Okay. But yeah, we have quite a few precepts regarding how donations are used. Other charitable organizations, people don't have precepts, but um, you know, it's kind of in the how to say, to get approved by the government as a charitable organization, you have to say that you're going to do things in a proper way. I know what is being done now politically is there's many charitable organizations that are used because they're charitable. They don't have to declare who donated to them. So some people are giving donations to those organizations, which they know will then give the money to different political parties. Yeah. So that, I think, is a real misuse of having a charitable designation by the IRS. Yeah. And that should not be done. But there are loopholes now. What was it? Citizen United really changed how all of that works, which was really unfortunate. Yeah. So, uh, yeah, check things out. But when you give, really give with your heart. Don't give with like, well, I hope that they, don't use it for that. Develop the trust and then really give. Because if you give with your heart, I mean, then you feel happy about giving and you create so much merit. If you give because you feel obliged or you're not quite sure how they're going to use it, then that really takes away from your joy and it decreases the merit too. Okay. Any question about any of this so far? Okay. Then, okay, I wanted to talk a little bit about the other kinds of generosity, because in one way we've been focusing on a lot on the generosity of material things, but there's other kinds. And so in this particular text, the second kind of generosity is the generosity of offering reverence, of offering respect. And I'll get into a story about that later on. But it's interesting to think about that because we, Americans aren't a particularly respectful people. Yeah. We like to build things up and then pick faults and tear them down. And yeah, you build up a sports star, a movie star, and then you tear them down. You build up a politician, you tear them down. And also because we are so competitive amongst each other that it becomes difficult to really praise other people because we're afraid that if we praise them, then other people will hear and other people will respect them more than us, or they'll get the promotion and we won't. Yeah. So this whole thing of wanting to be best, of wanting to make a name for ourselves, often gets in the way of offering respect and offering reverence to others. Okay? And also our way of disciplining kids. Yeah. I mean, there's many different ways, but I remember, of course, my childhood. I don't know about you, but when I got disciplined, when I was naughty, or when I wasn't naughty and was getting disciplined anyway, because my brother really started it and it wasn't my fault. Yeah, yeah. That's why you have a sibling, so you can blame everything on them. And what do only children do? It's difficult. Yeah, what do you do? You, you what? You behave. Oh, is that it? Really? Yeah? No? Oh. No rebellion if you're an only child? Um, yeah. But you still have a middle name. And they say that why do kids have middle names? So that you know when you are really in trouble. Because your parents call you by your full name, including your middle name. Didn't your parents do that? I mean, I knew when I was in trouble, Cheryl Andrea Green. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, what did I do? Yeah, did your parents like that? Yeah. So that's why you have middle names, so that when you're in trouble. But so often, getting in trouble, what we feel is that love is withdrawn. Somebody is so angry with us, that we are sent to our room, we are excluded from activities, we aren't noticed, they walk by us and ignore us, and so sometimes we have that connotation, of love being withdrawn. I stayed with one Chinese family during my travels, and I heard in the back room the father was disciplining his child. I don't know what the kid did. He was maybe about this big, and the father was really telling him what he did wrong, and in no uncertain terms. And then right after that, Dad and the little boy came walking through the room where I was. Dad was holding the boy and talking to him in a very sweet way. And I thought, wow, being the difference between being disciplined and knowing that you're still loved, and being disciplined and thinking that you are pushed away. Okay. So that kind of association, I think, can often interfere with us offering respect and appreciation to other people, because we think that if we show that, then they won't understand what we just said about not liking what they just did, or that if we have to, deal with a difficult situation with somebody, we have to be tough. And afterwards, that means that, for however long after that, we are like this around the person. So this thing of the generosity of respect or of reverence, I think, is helping us get over that and realize that we can deal with difficulties with people and still appreciate them afterwards and still respect them. That one issue doesn't need to ruin the whole relationship. Also, I think it's because we have overactive judgmental minds. Okay, do you think is your judgmental mind overactive? Oh, people say yes, other people say no. I'm seeing reality. I am not being judgmental. These people are jerks, and they do this wrong and that wrong and that wrong and that wrong. And I have my own mental file cabinet of everything they've done wrong, so that when we get in a fight, I can bring all of that out as ammunition. Yeah, do you do that? Mm-hmm. You store all the picky little things, and then when there's a big one, it all comes out. Okay. Actually, it's a Dharma practice to counteract that tendency to pick faults, to make it a practice of pointing out people's good qualities. Yeah. And I think, especially with kids, but also adults too, it's when we point things out to be very specific about what they did. Instead of with kids like, oh, you're a good boy, you're a good girl. That doesn't tell the child anything about what they did that other people appreciate. If you say, oh, thank you so much for cleaning up your room, now I can walk in it without tripping over things, then the child knows what specific thing they did that you are pleased with. And so it is with everybody, yeah, to look at specific actions that they've done and make it part of our practice to point those things out. Yeah, because it's already part of our practice to point out their faults. We don't hold back on that. Yeah, especially with the people we love the most. We point out their faults immediately. Yeah, don't let one go by. But it's really, it will alter our relationships, and it alters our state of mind too, if we really practice pointing out things that we appreciate, either qualities in general somebody has or specific actions that they do that we appreciate, and to make that part of your Dharma practice. Every day, at least once, I'm going to say something nice to whoever, and then do it. So I gave that assignment to one class I was teaching in Wisconsin one year, because one of the men in the class said, I work with this colleague who is just, I was talking about the kindness of others, and he said, this guy, no kindness, no good qualities, completely, there's nothing good about him. So I gave the assignment that week, because we were meeting once a week, everybody had to pick somebody, and then every day say one positive thing to that person about something they did, some way of showing respect or appreciation. And that man said, I'm not going to be able to do it. I can't do it with this guy. I said, try. Okay, so a week goes by, and the class meets again, and I said, well, how did you do? And people shared, and then I looked at him, and I said, how did you do? I lied and said something nice to him about what he did. Okay, so, we're going to keep the assignment for another week, Okay, and then the next week it was, I saw some small thing and I exaggerated it. Yeah, which is a form of lying. But he saw one small thing. And gradually, as the weeks went on, he began to really change his attitude toward this person and began to see more and more good qualities. Yeah. So that by the end, he could see good qualities, and he was pointing them out and actually feeling, good about being able to do that. Okay. So, one thing is pointing out good qualities to sentient beings. Another one is offering praise to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and Arhats and other holy beings. And so that is a way, if we have a trouble saying things to sentient beings and showing respect and appreciation, I think we start with the holy beings because they really have good qualities and we can notice their good qualities. And so a lot of the chanting we do is pointing out their good qualities. Okay. Now the question arises, because in some religions, the way you get in God's good grace is by praising and making offerings. Okay, and that's that's how you get in somebody's good grace. In Buddhism, the holy beings, they don't need our praise. I mean, when you are fully awakened, you have no attachment to things. So people saying nice things about you or praising you, it's, it doesn't mean anything because you aren't attached to that. So if from your own viewpoint, it doesn't mean anything. Of course, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas rejoice when we, as confused sentient beings, can see good qualities and praise them. Because when we see good qualities and praise them, we create merit. Our mind gets transformed. Okay. But it's not because the holy beings need it, and that's not a way to get in their good graces. Similarly, when we make offerings, if you have a shrine or an altar at home, it's, what did the Buddha get today? Oh, that's an avocado? Okay, an avocado and a couple of pears. And a glass, there's an apple? Oh yeah, there's an apple in the back. And a cup of water. Okay, so you think the Buddha needs that? Yeah. Um, the Buddhists don't need the offerings we make. Okay, the Bodhisattvas, none of them really need that, but but we give offerings because it is a way for us to get used to giving and to rejoice at giving, and also it's a way of expressing appreciation. Okay, so it's kind of, it's the next step from the carrot thing. you know, you put your, you don't just put it in your other hand, but you can put it on the shrine. You can give it to sentient beings. Okay, so we'll get into that in a few minutes. Yeah, because that's how this. Well, let's do it now, and then I'll do the other kind of generosity afterwards. Okay, so some of you may have seen the drawing. If I had been not so lazy, I would have found it online and we would have projected it. But you may have seen the drawing of an elephant in the forest with a monkey sitting on top of him and a bird sitting on top of the monkey. Yeah? Okay, so this is a story about that drawing. So there was once a time when people in Jambudvipa, which Jambudvipa is another name for our world, where people in Jambudvipa did not know enough to render proper reverence and respect to those who are older and those who are virtuous. Okay, so in our society as well as other societies, it was traditional to show respect to older people. because they have some life experience that we don't have. And personally, I think we can spend more, we should spend more time learning from older people and asking them about their lives, because they've lived through things that we haven't. And it's very interesting to get a perspective on a historical event from people who have lived through it. Okay, and to ask people what they have learned through their life about living, because some people learn a lot by living, and some people stay entrenched in what they think they know. But it's quite interesting. Okay, but it's saying here that some people don't know to show respect to those who are older and those who are virtuous. Yeah, because sometimes we're jealous of the people who are virtuous. It's like, yeah. Remember in school the kids who did really well? A lot of times they got picked on because, oh, you got an A, and they made fun of you. Anyway, okay, so at that time they were not yet amenable to being taught the means to liberation through the use of words alone. Okay, so this was a time you couldn't teach people the path through using words, because they were who knows what, they didn't pay attention, they were distracted, they were too busy picking faults, whatever. At that time, a bodhisattva transformed his body and manifests there in the form of the Kapinjala bird. Okay, so this bird had two close friends. The first was a great elephant, and the second was a monkey. Okay. They all lived together around the base of a peepal tree. They once happened to inquire of one another, wondering, we don't know amongst us who ought to be accorded the status of elder. So the elephant said, well, because now they were going to determine who was the oldest so that they could show respect to the oldest. So the elephant said, in the past, I viewed this tree when it was shorter than the height of my belly. It's still quite big, huh? Now it is so huge. From this, we can deduce that I ought to be known as the eldest. The monkey said, in the past, I've squatted down and plucked with my hand at the top of the tree. From this, we can deduce that I should be recognized as the eldest. The bird said, in the past, I fed on the fruit of such trees in the peepal forest. The seed then passed out with my feces, and as a result, this tree grew forth. It can be deduced from this that it is I who ought to be recognized as the eldest. So the bird continued, saying, as a matter of propriety, the firstborn, being the eldest, ought to be the recipient of offerings. So the great elephant he just went along with us. He didn't say, give me your birth certificate. Yeah, I want to check out how, bird when you were really born and monkey when you were really born. And, I want to know it's an authentic birth certificate, not one that you forged. And, they trusted each other. Okay, so the great elephant immediately took the monkey on his back, and the bird then rode on the back of the monkey. They traveled all around in this fashion. When all of the birds and beasts observed this, they asked them, why are you going around like this? Okay, I guess it wasn't so, usual to see an elephant with a monkey on their back and a bird on the monkey. They replied, we mean by this an expression of reverence and offerings to the one who is the eldest. The birds and the beasts all accepted this teaching and all practiced such reverence. They no longer invaded the fields of the people and no longer brought harm to the lives of other animals. The people were all amazed that all of the birds and beasts no longer engaged in harmful activities. Okay, so by modeling showing respect, yeah, these three animals changed the minds of all the other animals, because you couldn't say anything to these other animals, you couldn't teach them. So they showed by their example, and the example worked. The hunters went into the forest and observed that the elephant bore the monkey on his back, that the monkey carried along the bird, and that they so transformed the creatures through cultivating respectfulness that the creatures all cultivated goodness. Okay. They passed this on to the people of the country. The people all celebrated this and remarked, "The times are growing peaceful, though, but birds and beasts, they are nonetheless possessed of humanity." I wish the human beings were like this. Mm-hmm. And so the people as well modeled themselves on the animals. Okay, they all cultivated propriety and respect. From ancient times until the present, this transformative teaching has flowed on down through a myriad generations. One should know that this was brought about by a Dharma body bodhisattva. Dharma body meaning one who could manifest in different forms. Okay, so I think that's a very sweet story. Yeah, and the elephant, in showing respect to the monkey and the bird, didn't go, "Oh God, I'm always at the end of the line, everybody's going to notice the bird before me and praise the bird more than they praise me, I'm just this big clumsy elephant, you know." And the monkey didn't say, "Oh, everybody's going to notice the bird and not me." And the bird didn't go, "Huh, I'm at the top of the pile. I must be the best." Yeah, but this was just a way of showing respect and appreciation. Yeah, without any of the other stuff that we put on that very simple act of showing respect and appreciation. Yeah, because, how often do we really show respect to people? Mm-hmm. Yeah. How often do you let other cars in front of you when you're in a traffic jam? Mm-hmm. When you're walking on the sidewalk or on a path and people are walking in opposite directions, yeah, or two people are going the same direction, but the person in back is walking faster. Do we step aside so that the other person can go by? Or do we just go by because, well, I am I, and, they should step aside for me? So there's so many little things during the day that we can do that show respect to other people, that help our mind and also help the other person. Yeah. And it creates for a warmer society, especially people who have jobs where they are often just treated as objects. Okay, so the people who stock the shops, like those people, well, all the people who worked during the pandemic, who kept society going during the pandemic, when the people who were wealthier could stay at home and work from home. These people stayed where and worked where they were exposed to COVID, where they had a higher incidence of sickness and death, and where they also worked at low-paid jobs. Yeah. But how often did people stop and say thank you? You know, when we're in a shop and we want to find something, do we treat the salesperson as a human being? Are we polite to them? Do we smile at them? Or is it, I want this, where's that? Do we say thank you at the end? There's things like that that can make a really big difference in somebody's life, because if you go through your whole day stocking shelves and everybody just walks straight past you and nobody says anything except where's this and where's that, yeah, then you don't, you feel like you're working, but you're not recognizing, as if you were invisible, you know. And what about people who work at the customer service for Amazon? Can you imagine a worse job? Well, maybe working at customer service for an airline. Yeah, those are tough jobs because they call it customer service. What is it? It's the complaint department. And every single person that calls you or comes up to the desk is complaining about something that your company did that they don't like and that they want changed immediately. And you didn't do anything to these people. You're just representing the company, getting paid hardly anything. And people will rant at you and criticize you and trash you because somebody else in another department put the wrong thing in the box or sent it to the wrong address or whatever. Yeah. And how often are we the person on the other end of the line or on the other side of the counter that take our frustration and exasperation out on that poor person, who really will try and help us if we give them a chance. They're not wishing us ill. Yeah, if we need to return something, they want to help. If we need another flight, they want to help. But they can't, especially the people at the flight counter, they can't create flights that don't exist. Yeah, they can't find seats that don't exist. And but I have to get there, I'm giving a talk, I'm doing this, somebody's getting married, what can the poor person do? And then they come home from work just like, you know. So these people are strangers, but, they're human beings. Yeah. The people who work at gas stations. I had a friend, in the old days, I guess sometimes now there are gas stations where people wait on you. In, huh? In Oregon and New Jersey. And I think in most states, don't they have some that are self-service and some where other people? No? Okay. Anyway, I had a friend, back in the days of the dinosaurs, who worked as a gas station attendant. And he was telling me, people would sit in their car and he was cleaning the window thing and they would tap from the inside. Here's something, and here's something, and here's something. It's like, I'm looking and I'm trying to clean your window thing, and you don't really need to do that. Yeah, but just how we do things that sometimes can make people feel really demeaned and dismissed. Yeah, whereas these people are the people we should say thank you to because they're doing something that benefits us. Okay, so it's a very good habit to get into. Similarly, when you're driving and those road workers, when you can, when traffic allows you to stop, just call out, thank you so much for, repairing the roads. We really appreciate it. It's nice that they get some good credit. The people who collect your garbage, yeah, those people we usually really ignore. Those people are precious. Yeah. Have you ever been in a city when the garbage collectors have been on strike? Yeah. I was in Tel Aviv once when the garbage collectors were on strike. Oh my goodness, what a mess. A huge city, and nobody picks up the garbage in front of the houses. Yeah. Then you realize how important the garbage collectors are and what a service they do for society. Yeah. And you start thanking them when they come around and pick up the garbage or pick up the recycling. Okay. Because again, we see our interdependence with them. And it's very clear that our having safe and healthy streets without rats crawling around in and out all the garbage bags on the street. It depends on them. Okay. So these kind of attitudes, it's a change in attitude that is actually part of our Dharma practice. Yeah. It's not just, we tend as kids to say, oh, that's just manners. You say please, you say thank you. Somebody invites you to their house, you bring some little offering so that you don't look like a cheapskate. We see these things as social, perfunctory things to do, but they don't need to be. They can be small actions of really transforming our mind and showing appreciation and respect to other people. Yeah. And that's very much part of our spiritual practice. Okay. And it's very helpful to us. Yeah? And not to pay so much attention to, well, I'm the bird on the back of the monkey on riding on the elephant. And don't you know that you should thank me when I do this? To that mind that thinks like that, banish it. Yeah, banish it. That is not a quality to cultivate, is it? Yeah. I mean, what kind of people do we turn out to be when all we do is think of me, and I'm the best and I deserve everything? Yeah. Well, there's some good examples in our society, not good examples, bad examples of people who think like that, and the effect they have on other people and on society as a whole. And it's terrible. And we look at those people and, do we see their suffering? Yeah. We look at them and criticize them for being arrogant, but do we see their suffering? Why are they arrogant? Yeah. Why are they arrogant? Why do they feel entitled to everything? Yeah. Very often it's because they don't really believe in themselves. Yeah. They don't like themselves. So they're looking for other people to bolster them up. Mm-hmm. Because people who are really comfortable in their own skin, they don't need to go around saying, I'm the best. Yeah, because that's not high on their scale of, needs. Yeah. So just, something to think about. And And it's small things, and we can, do this in daily life, starting immediately. And it makes a big effect on our mind and on the people around us. And especially if you're a parent, or if you're in the position of leadership at one company or another, how you are is what other people take as an example. Yeah. So my parents used to say, do as I say, not as I do. But children learn by observing what their parents do, and they observe if their parents say one thing and act the opposite. So, and that affects kids. Yeah. And it affects, all the people in a certain company or a certain workplace. Yeah. I was reading an article about some Japanese, what do you call it, a mogul, some type business, some, yeah. He was in the obituaries for the New York Times, and he just died at age 90, and he was, that's like some big business person in Japan. And when he was maybe about 65, he he well he he gave it up and he became a Buddhist monk. And and then he, Japanese airlines started having trouble, so the government asked him to come back and help the airlines. So he came back and got the airlines on its feet again, and then went back, to the monastery. But apparently, his whole way of running a business was, he had his own values, and they imbued how he ran the business. And he really had the thought that the people who worked should be adequately compensated for their work, and that they should feel a sense of accomplishment and fulfillment for the work that they do. So he had his own personal values, a lot of which came from Buddhism, and he acted them out in the work environment. And it made, apparently that's what he attributed to, the success he had. Yeah. He also said he thought there must have been some divine compassion going in there too. Yeah. But I found that quite interesting, because, if people look to the leadership for what is okay and what's not okay. Yeah. Okay. Now, the other kind of, for the second kind of generosity, yeah, that one was, we talked about respect and appreciation and reverence. Okay, the other one is it's expressed in two different ways sometimes: the generosity of offering protection and the generosity of offering love. Okay, you can see how they could come together. Yeah, if somebody's fearful, offering protection. So that means even starting with bugs who are drowning in a bucket of water because somebody didn't cover the bucket of water. We take the bugs out. Yeah. So it takes a little bit more time to stop there and take the bugs out. Or you're in a swimming pool and there's all sorts of bugs, to stop and take them out and say, you're saving their lives. Yeah, who wants to drown in a bucket of water? So that's offering protection, with travelers who come, who don't know their way around, don't know how to get places, help them. Yeah. They say that in some countries, when you ask how to get from one place to another, that the people you ask will actually accompany you and walk you to that place. Yeah, because they want to make sure you get there, and they'll walk with you. Yeah, Americans just tend to point the way, go 5 blocks that way, turn left, then at the first signal, turn right, then at the second signal, turn right, then make a U-turn and go straight, and the person is lost. Yeah, so you can really see the kindness of taking somebody where they're going. In India, when you ask direction, it doesn't matter whether somebody knows where it is or not. They just go like this and point in a direction, right? Yeah. So, but they're very happy and they're very kind, and they don't go, ooh, that way. This. So, because on some of the big streets have street signs, but some streets there's no street signs. You don't know what street you're on. Yeah, so you have to ask. I don't know how the taxi drivers do it, but somehow they do. Okay. Yeah, so protection, travelers, people who are sick, giving them love, giving them support, giving them protection. Okay, people who are injured. Even there's strangers. We see sometimes things of what one stranger does for another one. It's totally amazing. Sometimes I saw one thing where a car had caught on fire, and some stranger stopped. They were driving by, they stopped. They pulled the people out of the burning car. I mean, at the risking of their own life. And during the recent floods in Kentucky, with people just hanging on to whatever they can in the middle of this raging floodwater, strangers, throwing out whatever ropes or whatever they could to, those people could hang onto and be dragged back to shore. So, doing that, showing this kind of protection, love to people who are in need of it. Yeah. And again, doing so with a happy mind instead of a mind of, oh, this is really inconvenient. They did one study at some time with speakers who were asked to speak about, something involving, helping others or being generous, some kind of talk like that. And uh, and they were at college campuses and they had to go from one building to the other, and so to do this study, and then on the way there they would they would encounter somebody who was looking like they were drunk or that they were ill or somebody crying or whatever. And some of these people who were going to give the talk on that very topic walked right by those people and didn't stop. And it was interesting because when they were a little bit late for their engagement, they they tended to ignore the person that they encountered. When they had more time, then they stopped and helped. But it was interesting to observe that. Yeah. So not only helping strangers, but helping the people we know. My goodness. Yeah, because we've all been in that position where we've needed help in one way or another and have depended on either people we know or strangers to help us. Okay. Then also, so this is, when people are in a physical trouble and they need that kind of protection or love. What about when somebody is overwhelmed by emotion? Somebody is sobbing or somebody is just depressed, or someone is bewildered, yeah, or someone is dissatisfied, or irritated. How often, do we step in and really listen to somebody who needs to be able to talk and have somebody else understand? It's very interesting. Some people are more afraid of people showing a strong emotion, that strong emotions are uncomfortable to some people. Yeah. And they feel like, I don't want to really step in and get involved with that. Yeah. Some people, if a couple of people are fighting, they don't mind jumping in the middle of that. Yeah. But if some people are showing emotion, yeah, it's scary to some people. Any people here like that? Somebody showing strong emotion and you get a little bit nervous? Yeah. So, again, it's a practice to check in with ourselves and why does that uh, strong show of emotion make me uncomfortable? Yeah. Often it has to do maybe with what happened in the past, previous circumstances. We find sometimes when we have a silent retreat, some people get really uneasy with the silence. And when we've talked to them afterwards, it often comes out that silence in their family meant that somebody was really mad and was going to explode. Yeah. Like at the dinner table, it's dead silence, and you can look at the faces and you could feel the energy, and it's scary when nobody's talking. Yeah. So some people, yeah, at silent retreats, that comes out. Yeah. So to recall at those times that we may have had a previous experience with somebody showing some emotion that was troubling to us at the time. I mean, if you're a kid and you know that your parents are about to explode in a huge fight, it's scary as a kid. Okay. So to be able to acknowledge that, like, okay, this is what I experienced years ago, but I'm a different person now, and, I can deal with these situations now. Yeah. So some people find it very easy. Somebody's upset and crying, they can talk to them. Other people, they don't want to go near. They feel very, very uncomfortable. Okay. So, uh, these are all ways of looking and seeing, where are our buttons? Yeah. Where do we get afraid and self-concerned? And where are we more open? And in those areas where we can see our mind contracting, how can we relax our mind so that we can be more open to help people who are experiencing strong emotions?